USCHO.com.
Welcome to USCHO Spotlight for Wednesday, January 11th, 2023. Each week we talk with a coach, player, administrator, or journalist about college hockey. This podcast is sponsored by the NCAA Men's Division I Frozen Four, April 6th and 8th at Amalie Arena in Tampa, Florida. Get your seats at ncaa.com/mfrozen4. I'm Ed Trefzger alongside Jim Connelly. A lot of eyes have been on the Big Ten this season, and a team that is right in the mix in that conference is Ohio State.
Joining us now on USCHO Spotlight, the head coach of the Ohio State Buckeyes, that's Steve Rohlik. And Steve, hey, your team playing really good hockey of late, coming off a weekend sweep of Michigan State. Big Ten play. Big Ten's a tough conference this year, but you guys are in very good position, sitting just a point out of second place right now. What do you like about this club?
Well, I guess I think, first of all, resilient, in our depth. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for our depth with some injuries and, stuff and guys going out for the year and whatnot. Other guys have stepped up and did a great job. And then coming back from Christmas, you don't know. You're off for 3 weeks. We ended on a decent note, but you just never know where the team's going to be at once you come back. And it was nice to get those 2 games under our belt last weekend.
You mentioned some depth, and I look at the goal scorers and a couple of guys with 10 goals already. I want to hit on Joe Dunlap, a kid that comes from my neck of the woods out here in New England, and out at Ohio State. First couple of years, not putting up huge numbers, but this year, 10 goals thus far this season. I know he was your most improved player last year, but it almost feels like he's probably eligible for that award again this year because he's really on a roll right now. What do you like about his game?
Well, I think he's really learning who he is. North-south speed, shoot the puck, and he's playing with some good line mates, and I think they've had some great chemistry. But, so I think sometimes in the past he's always wanted to, maybe, as all hockey players, you want to do more, right? Maybe it's east-west. Maybe I want to beat those 3 guys. And I think he's really learned that he's more dangerous when pucks are in space and he's moving his feet, and he's got a tremendous shot and he's got a lot of confidence right now.
We hear a lot about Mason Laurie on defense, just a sophomore. No goals at this point, but 17 assists. I mean, he's obviously always seems to be involved in the play offensively. But having watched him play on BTN here and there, you see that he's a two-way player. He's responsible on the back end. Has his game continued to improve as a sophomore?
Yeah, I think it has. I mean, people don't realize that he was in a 8-9 month rehab stint to just even have a chance to play the first game this year. And his absence the last 5 games last year was a big difference for us. So he's still scratching the surface, in my opinion. I mean, certainly, I think if you've seen him play over the last few years in USHL and college hockey, that he's a difference maker. I think he's still learning his game, when to pick his spots, when to swing for the fences, when to maybe just take the base hit or the double. But that's the fun part with a guy like that. He wants to be a player. I mean, he shows up every day and wants to be a better player, and he's willing to put the time in, and that's fun as a coach.
On the back end, Jakub Dobish, he has carried your water in net 14-7-1. He has a 2.12 goals against and 923 save percentage. All those numbers add up. And what does he provide besides just a chance to win every night?
Well, number one, you hit it on the head. Number two, as you know, when a goaltender plays like that, he makes you better. I mean, he gives guys confidence. He gives your team more confidence that if we're going to make a mistake, he's going to be there for you. And you don't want to leave him out to dry. But, we know if we can play good, solid defensive hockey in front of him and not give up the easy ones. I mean, and that at times might have been an Achilles heel when we've given up some goals. But if you make teams earn at 200, and he's going to be there for you, he just makes you better as a group of 5 every night.
Jim mentioned how tough the Big Ten is this year. Right now, if the season ended here, you'd have 6 teams in the NCAA tournament. Is this the best the Big Ten has been since it was formed? And secondly, how does it match up, do you think, against the overall college hockey landscape?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think number one, college hockey is as good as it's ever been, I think. And I mean that as far as parity across the board. And you guys know as well as I know, if you're not playing your best on a weekend, no matter who you play, you're going to get beat. And that could be anybody. I will say the Big Ten is, you go through a lot. I'll tell you, it pushes you to be a better coach. It pushes your players to be better because from top to bottom, there's not a night off. Every team in our league can beat anybody out there. And, this year, I mean, I think the depth of the league can show. I think, we had 3 teams in the Frozen Four a few years back. We've had multiple teams in the national tournament every year, but it's a long way to the end, right? It's a process, and you got to take care of what's in front of you. And right now, it's about the day to day, but certainly everybody in our league has put themselves in a pretty decent position.
You mentioned parity. As you and especially your staff are looking at recruiting players, are you finding that there are more players out there than there are places to put them?
No, I mean, obviously there's a lot of hockey players everywhere out there, and it's about opportunities. And certainly all of us on this call would love to see our sport continue to grow. And, maybe there'll be more schools popping out west or whatnot. And we want to continue to add this game because there are a lot of really good hockey players that I think deserve to play at this level. And through the recruiting process and at the end of the day, as coaches, you always want to get the best kids out there, or the A, quote unquote, A players. But obviously there's a handful of those, and then you got to do the best job you can because, a lot of these kids just get an opportunity and they flourish. And, that's kind of the magic of finding those kids.
More with Ohio State's Steve Rohlik in a moment. USCHO Spotlight is sponsored by the NCAA Men's Division I Frozen Four, April 6th and 8th, 2023 at Amalie Arena in Tampa, Florida.
All right, class, it's the NCAA Men's Frozen Four. Welcome to Fandom 101. Want to help your team rule the rink? Here's your assignment. Lesson 1, go big for every goal. 2, when you bring enough for the whole class. And 3, attendance is encouraged, but passion is mandatory. The NCAA Men's Frozen Four, April 6th and 8th at Amalie Arena in Tampa, Florida. Buy your tickets today at ncaa.com/mfrozen4. Class dismissed.
We're back with Ohio State head coach Steve Rohlik. Sticking with the overall college hockey landscape, a couple of rule changes this year. You have more opportunities to challenge with video after just the first one with the timeout. And there's also been a bit of a change up with misconducts and how referees can call, for example, contact along the boards. Have these changes been good this season?
I think the intent to is trying to keep more guys in the game, unless it's a egregious, vicious hit that everybody can determine, listen, this guy's got to get tossed out of the game, and we take a look from there. But I think for the most part, I think video's gotten to a point where it's so overused, in my opinion, that it becomes such a big part of the game. I think the intent way back when was, one, let's get the goals right. It's either a goal or not a goal. And now it's used quite a bit in our game. I think, one, we want to keep more players in the game. But 2, I would certainly like to see less video and keep the games flowing and go more. I think it's better for the games, better for the fans. That's kind of what I see on that end of it as far as the video goes.
Steve, I look at the Big Ten. I go back to the day the league was first created. It used to be you played all your non-league games really quick, get them out of the way, before Thanksgiving, really, and then it was all Big Ten. You have a little bit more mix now as you get toward that midpoint of the season, but now you are in that Big Ten only stretch. How much does that just put that emphasis on what you're trying to do in terms of winning a regular season championship and then hopefully winning a postseason championship?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great point. I mean, in the league and coaches, and I think everybody in college hockey understands what the non-conference means. And I think that's one of the reasons why you see the Big Ten where it's at right now. If you're winning the majority of your games non-conference, it puts you in a good position down the road. But, now obviously it's so hard to win every night. Every point is so crucial. The focus on the Big Ten right now, we know the gauntlets ahead of us. We know every coach in our league knows that we got to be prepared every night, and then knock on wood, try to stay as healthy as you can as you go through these next 12 games to give yourself a chance.
Your team has been fantastic at home this season. Road a 500 team. I guess most coaches would say, hey, if we can split most of our games on the road, it's okay. But you are now going in kind of that road gauntlet. I think you have 6 series left, and 4 of them will be on the road, beginning this weekend at Michigan, then next weekend at Wisconsin. What changes? How much more difficult is it to play on the road, especially in this league where you have some big buildings, some loud buildings that really can get going?
Yeah, that's why you play in this league. You play in this league to be at the greatest venues out there in college hockey, and the atmospheres out there in college hockey, and the challenges. To me, I think that's the fun part of going on the road. Since I've been here, we've actually been a decent road team. This year being 500, hopefully we can stretch that mark a little bit. But again, it just teaches your team to be focused, and it's kind of one shift at a time. I mean, obviously the home team gets the last change. That the home team's in a position for when teams are that close. A lot of times it comes down to little things, and that's kind of the difference of being at home and being on the road. And obviously special teams, and you got to be just disciplined in everything you do.
Before I let you go, this Michigan team that you'll play this week, I know everybody knew about Michigan last year. There were so many first-round draft picks on that team, an entire power play unit that can be in the NHL any day. I think a lot of people say, oh, they lost so much, they're not the same team. They're still a really stacked, talented team. Can you just maybe take through what you've seen out of Michigan to this point?
Yeah, I could argue, I don't know if there's any team that has as much skill out there as they do. When you look at it on paper and you watch them on video and you see that talent that they have, you understand how dangerous they are. Again, you got to be at your best. You understand that you're going into it. You saw a lot of them play this last week over Christmas break at the World Juniors, and they're capable of going on a major run, and we just want to get up there and be at our best and play within ourselves and play within our structure to go up there and give us a chance.
Well, it should be some fantastic hockey in Ann Arbor this weekend. A 6:30 start on Friday night. It's a 4:30 start on Saturday. I believe that's a Big Ten Network game. So if you're around the country, there's plenty to check out. And this is hockey worth watching. And Steve, we appreciate your time, and good luck this weekend, but good luck the rest of the season as well.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I appreciate you having me on.
That's Ohio State's Steve Rohlik. Jim, it's interesting to hear Steve talk about the Big Ten and the challenges. Can you imagine going up against a team like Michigan that just sent a half dozen guys to the World Juniors?
It's so interesting what this league has become. Listen, I was one of the many that were bashing the Big Ten when they started and saying, they're not as good as they thought they were. And listen, now they are as good, and they might be better than anybody thought the Big Ten could ever be. You're talking about 7 teams in the league right now. 6 of them are at or above 500. And Wisconsin at 9-13-1 or 9-13-2, whatever they are, they're right there. I mean, these are 6 unreal programs plus a Wisconsin team that has some potential. They will get there. Every one of these teams is good, and we are seeing it. We always talked about the NCHC like this, like, oh, who's going to be the team at the bottom? Maybe you have to have one, but the Big Ten is proving that you don't have to have multiple teams that are down in a given year. If the season ended today, would have 6 of their 7 members in the NCAA tournament. That's basketball-like numbers. That's not a hockey trend that we usually see.
I know Steve talked a little bit about A players, and maybe there are only just so much to go around, but there are a lot more skilled players out there. So the skill level at all these teams just is astounding. You talk to coaches, they recognize how skilled and how conditioned and how serious players are now. So just the overall landscape of the game, as he says, is better than it's ever been. And the Big Ten is better among those better teams.
And you see it. I mean, I mentioned Joe Dunlap. I mean, I'm sure he was not recruited as an A player, but he's getting there. His talent is unreal. He's got 10 goals right now. We're barely halfway through the season. You can build players in college hockey. I firmly believe that. We've seen plenty of coaches out there take players that got passed over, put them inside the right environment, put them inside the right system, and then they thrive. And then next thing you know, they're not only just having a good college career, they're in the NHL. It's a fantastic, speech right there for development. You can have a wonderful platform that College Hockey Inc. I know loves to promote all the time, that college hockey can build players, and it does. So yes, there are A players, and there's a lot of them. In Michigan, as we mentioned, had a ton of them last year. They have a good number of them this year. Many of these teams in the Big Ten have a lot of them. But you see teams all around the country taking maybe those B and C players and turning them into better players than anybody ever thought they could be.
You mentioned the mix of non-conference games throughout the season. The early years of the Big Ten, they were all kind of stacked up before Thanksgiving. That may be something that's contributing to what we're seeing this year, which is some odd moves up and down and different teams in the mix that we wouldn't expect. I mean, to me, this has been the most unpredictable and fascinating season to watch standings and pairwise that we've seen in years.
Yeah, and the success of that league, the Big Ten, I think, has a lot to do with the fact that they've spaced out some of their non-league play. It does seem like they're building in those bye weekends, because you always have a team that's off every week. But in the second half, maybe you don't fill that. In the first half, you fill it. Maybe around Christmas time, you're throwing in some extra games. There was a lot of pressure on the Big Ten when that conference first started, that you had to come out of the gate really hot. And if you were just a little bit, below the radar, or below the curve, and not playing your best hockey in October and November, you really brought down the overall non-conference record of the league. Now, I think there's less pressure, and you can space these games out. You see more of these teams involved in some of the non-league play around the holidays, and it's working. I mean, this is by far the best year that the Big Ten has had out of conference. And when you look at the interconference records, the Big Ten right now, with the 721 winning percentage of 49-18-3 record, the next conference after that is the NCHC, a 618 winning percentage, more than 100, percentage points in between. 50, 30, and 5 is the NCHC's record. So the Big Ten has taken some major steps forward in really improving their non-conference play, and that's why you're looking at potentially 6 teams in an NCAA field.
And an upset from Wisconsin could make it 7.
You'd never know, right?
Wouldn't that be something? One last thing we touched on was rule changes, and particularly video challenges. I know of a couple of situations, including one I saw this weekend, where a call is made on the ice, and then the referees convene and overturn it, and then there's a challenge there. So it goes back and forth a couple of times. That famously happened out between Arizona State and Denver earlier in the season. And it's really a difficult tightrope to walk, I think, between wanting to get things right and having too many video calls to upset the game. I think it's still a work in progress, but honestly, I do like the opportunity for coaches to have more than one challenge, because now they don't feel like they have to keep it in their pocket for something really egregious.
I agree with you there. I do think that there are still people out there that understand and maybe even feel that sometimes you're over officiating with video, but I like to get it right mentality. And our friends at the NCAA that we talk to all the time, firmly believe it. Even Steve Petrowski, who is no longer with the NCAA, but now at the Big Ten as the head of officials, and he's always been one that says, let's just get it right. You don't want a long game, and we talked about this on Monday in Weekend Review with Derek Schooley. You don't want the 3-hour games, but at the same time, these games mean enough. There's not a ton of them on the schedule. Take your time, get the calls right. I don't mind a little bit of extra video review. I don't need a ton of it, but I get that you need to get the calls right. So do your best on the ice, but use the video when you need to.
Well, we do appreciate Steve Rohlik joining us on this episode of USCHO Spotlight, which has been sponsored by the NCAA Men's Division I Frozen Four, April 6th and 8th at Amalie Arena in Tampa, Florida. Visit ncaa.com/mfrozen4 to get your tickets. You can find our podcast at uscho.com/podcast. or subscribe on your favorite podcast app. For Jim Connelly, I'm Ed Trefzger, and this has been USCHO Spotlight.